Hey guys, Night Wanderer. Can I tempt you into a cozy little mystery before you drift off? Tonight, we're diving gently, of course, into the strange world of plants that really don't want to be touched. You see, nature isn't always kind and leafy. Sometimes it's, well, the quiet kind of terrifying. We're talking about trees that can burn your skin when it rains, flowers that whisper hallucinations into your dreams, roots that scream, yes, scream if you pull them too hard. But first, where are you watching from tonight? Are you curled up in bed, lying on a couch in the dark, maybe on a night shift somewhere far away from noise and light? Wherever you are, take a deep breath. Let your curiosity put on its pajamas. Because this journey, it's going to get weirdly botanical. All right, so here we go. You've settled in, the night is wrapping around you like a quiet blanket, and your mind is ready for something strange, but soft, something botanical and slightly unhinged. Let's start not with a bang, but with a sting. A soft green leaf, heart-shaped, gently swaying in the rainforest breeze of northeastern Australia. It doesn't roar. It doesn't threaten. It just waits. This is Gympie gympie. Aww. Gympie, or Dendrocnidae moroides for those who prefer scientific names, though frankly that feels too polite for something so rude. It's also called the suicide plant, which might already tell you this isn't your average bit of greenery. But don't worry, we're just visiting. Quietly. From a distance. If plants had personalities, this one would be the reclusive forest hermit with a wicked sense of revenge. The kind that doesn't shout when you trespass, it lets you touch first, then punishes you for weeks, or months, or in some stories, years. You see, this plant doesn't believe in brief encounters. Touch its leaves and it touches you back with thousands of tiny, invisible stinging hairs. These hairs, thinner than a human hair, contain a venom cocktail so potent it can send full-grown adults into screaming fits. It's been compared to electrocution, to being burned, to the kind of pain that wakes you at night long after you thought it was gone. And the real kicker. The pain can return without warning. Cold showers, sudden movement, sometimes even the brush of fabric across your skin will make your nerves flare up like they've remembered something they wish they could forget. It's not just a sting, it's a memory, and not a good one. But what makes this plant so terrifying isn't just the pain, it's how ordinary it looks. The Gympie gympie doesn't wear warning colors. It's not neon or sharp or twisted. It's gentle looking, green and leafy, like something you'd happily picnic beneath if you didn't know better. And many haven't. Horses have died from running through it. Soldiers during WA2 were stung during training missions in Queensland and had to be hospitalized. One story goes that a man, after enduring days of unrelenting pain, reportedly took his own life to escape it. Even trained scientists treat it with the kind of respect you'd usually reserve for explosives. They wear protective suits, face shields, and thick gloves, and they still approach with caution. Some use tongs, others simply walk away. But let's go a little deeper, because there's something almost elegant about how it works. When you touch the plant, you disturb those stinging hairs. They pierce your skin and snap off inside you, injecting a dose of venom directly into your nerves. These tiny glass-like needles can remain embedded for weeks, continuing to irritate and release their toxins. The venom contains a unique group of peptides nicknamed gympiotides, which hijack your pain receptors and trick your body into thinking it's under constant attack. Scientists studying these peptides have discovered they interact with ion channels in a way that mimics other deadly venoms like those found in spiders or jellyfish. And yet, this knowledge may not be entirely bad, because here's the twist: those very same peptides may hold the key to treating chronic pain. The idea is that by understanding how this venom creates such persistent agony, we could learn how to block or modulate nerve signals more effectively than we can today. So, in a strange way, the Gympie gympie is both torturer and teacher. Nature's cruel lesson in how nerves work and maybe how to calm them. But in the meantime, it remains one of the most feared plants on the planet. Rangers and researchers who work near them often put up warning signs or fence them off entirely. And locals, well, they just stay away. Aboriginal communities have known of the plant for centuries. They used it carefully with gloves made of bark or banana leaves and knew how to treat the sting with traditional salves and heated sand. Modern medicine, though, still has no cure. The best we can do is remove the hairs if we're lucky and wait, and sometimes wait and wait. But here's what might be the most fascinating part of all this. The Gympie Gympie. Gympie Gympie isn't evil. It's not trying to hurt you. It's just doing what it must to survive in a rainforest teeming with life. Everything eats plants, insects, mammals, birds. So this plant evolved its own line of defense. Not spikes, not thorns, but something far more psychological, something unforgettable. And in that way, the Gympie Gympie becomes not just a plant, but a memory, a lesson, a quiet leafy guardian that says respect the forest. And perhaps as you lie there tonight, letting your mind wander through the winding paths of the natural world, you might remember this green whisper in the rainforest, the one that doesn't shout, the one that waits, the one that hurts and teaches. And you'll know in the gentle hush of the night that not all danger roars. Some of it sways, silently, patiently, and just once is enough to remember it forever. There's a kind of plant that grows where people least expect danger. It stands beside highways and schoolyards on balconies, and in hotel gardens, silently decorating the world with bursts of pink-white and soft yellow. It thrives in heat. It doesn't mind poor soil. It blooms without asking for much. And most of the time, people walk past it unaware that every part of it is poisonous. This is oleander, scientifically known as Nerium oleander, and it is one of the most toxic ornamental plants in the world. Its beauty is a quiet disguise. The leaves, the flowers, the stem, even the milky sap inside its veins, all of it carries a powerful set of toxins known as cardiac glycosides. These chemicals interfere directly with the rhythm of the human heart, not in a subtle way, but with the precision of a saboteur who knows exactly where to strike. The danger doesn't come with a bitter taste or a foul smell. It doesn't come with warning colors or a sting. It comes dressed as elegance. A few leaves can be fatal to a child. Even the smoke from burning oleander wood can sicken a person. There are stories from centuries ago of people using it for quiet assassinations, skewers made from its branches, meals laced with its crushed leaves, drinks stirred with a single flower. The symptoms begin, like many illnesses do, nausea, dizziness, irregular heartbeat. But if left unchecked, the toxin can slow the heart until it simply stops. And still we plant it. Still we admire it. In California, in the Mediterranean, in parts of Asia, oleander is part of the background of daily life, a fixture of streetscapes and flower beds. Perhaps it is our belief that beauty means safety, that something so bright and floral must be harmless. But nature often writes its lessons in contrasts. Oleander is not cruel. It doesn't seek to harm. It simply defends itself in the only way it knows, by ensuring that nothing feeds on it twice. And it works. Livestock that graze near oleander often learn the hard way. Horses have died from a few bites. Dogs that chew its leaves fall violently ill. Even insects give it space. But what makes oleander even more complex is that its toxins, in extremely small and carefully controlled doses, have shown medical potential. Some researchers have studied its effects on certain cancers. Its compounds may one day form the basis for treatments that heal the body instead of harming it. It's a contradiction, one that's found again and again in the natural world, that what poisons in one dose may protect in another. But there is no safe guessing. There is no margin for error when it comes to oleander. Its boundaries are absolute. It does not allow mistakes. And perhaps that's what makes it so fascinating. A plant that offers no forgiveness, no soft second chances, yet does so while blooming beautifully quietly with no sign of menace. It does not need to shout. It does not need to move. It waits rooted and calm while the world moves around it. And sometimes when the wrong hand reaches for it, nature responds with a lesson that is unforgettable. Tonight, as the world slows down and your mind begins to drift into that space between wakefulness and sleep, Think of the oleander, not with fear, but with respect. It reminds us that not all danger comes wrapped in teeth or thunder. Sometimes it arrives in bloom, and sometimes it doesn't even know you're there. But you know now. And knowledge even whispered in the dark is a kind of protection. Let the flowers fade behind your eyelids. Let the silence hold their secrets. Tomorrow there will be another mystery to explore. But for now, rest easy. And stay curious. Some plants whisper warnings, others wear their danger like armor, and then there are those that enchant you first, drawing you close not with menace, but with mystery. Brugmansia is one of them. Often called angel's trumpet, this plant hangs its enormous flowers downward as if the earth itself were listening. The blossoms are trumpet-shaped, long and flaring in shades of soft peach, creamy yellow, blushing pink, and ghostly white. They bloom in the twilight hours when the air cools and the world grows quiet, releasing a fragrance that is sweet floral and hauntingly strong, especially at night. For many, it is a garden centerpiece, admired for its surreal beauty and intoxicating scent. But beneath its elegance lies something far stranger and far more unsettling. Brugmansia is not merely poisonous, it is psychoactive deliriant and capable of transporting the human mind into realms where reality melts and memory becomes untrustworthy. Every part of the plant, its leaves, its flowers, its seeds, contains powerful alkaloids, such as scopolamine, atropine, and hyoscyamine. These compounds are not gentle. They do not soothe. They unsettle. They confuse. They disconnect the mind from its anchor. In traditional cultures of South America, Brugmansia has long been used in rituals, often by shamans or spiritual practitioners who understand its danger and power. The plant is sacred in some regions, treated with reverence and caution. But outside of ritual, it is known for causing vivid, terrifying hallucinations. People who've consumed it either by mistake or by intent have spoken of experiences so bizarre, so immersive they couldn't tell what was real. They've spoken to people who weren't there, lit imaginary cigarettes, wandered into traffic believing they were walking down familiar streets. Some have described entire conversations hours long, only to realize later that they had been entirely alone. The hallucinations brought on by Brugmansia are not like those induced by other psychedelics. They don't shimmer or glow. They don't expand the mind in poetic, mystical ways. Instead, they create delusions, completely believable and often terrifying. These are not visions. They are traps for consciousness. A state of waking nightmare often accompanied by amnesia, confusion, and a lingering sense of dread. In clinical settings, scopolamine is sometimes used in low doses to treat motion sickness or post-operative nausea. But in Brugmansia's raw form, those alkaloids have no mercy. The line between a dose that induces visions and one that causes convulsions or death is razor thin. And yet, despite all this, the plant remains widely cultivated. It stands in courtyards, behind fences outside churches, blooming like a dream, breathing its perfume into the evening air. Most people never touch it, never taste it, never know what secrets it holds. But those who do, accidentally or otherwise, often find themselves changed, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. There are stories of people who have never fully returned from the experience. Their memories fogged their minds, unsettled. Some were drawn by curiosity, others by desperation. But Brugmansia does not care about intentions. It only delivers what it has always delivered: a window into a fractured mirror, a labyrinth of thoughts where nothing is quite right. And still it is beautiful. Still it blooms. Still it calls. It is easy to see why legends grew around it, why some cultures saw it as a plant of the underworld, a gatekeeper between the waking world and the shadow realm. To sit near a Brugmansia tree at night, surrounded by the stillness of its scent, is to feel something ancient watching. Not malevolent, not kind, simply aware, waiting. Tonight, as you lie there with the darkness gathering softly beyond your windows, let your thoughts drift, but not too far. Let your dreams unfold, but gently. Brugmansia is out there, a flower with the face of an angel and the mind of a trickster. And it reminds us that not all beauty brings peace. Some beauty stirs the mind, reshapes it, makes it question itself. And sometimes the most dangerous journeys begin not with footsteps, but with the scent of a flower on the breeze. Sleep well, wanderer. We're only just beginning. There are roots that feed roots that anchor, and then there are roots that whisper stories, older than history itself. Mandrake is one of those. It has haunted the edges of human imagination for thousands of years, a plant woven into folklore, superstition, and medicine alike. Its Latin name, Mandragora officinarum, sounds like something from a spellbook, and perhaps rightly so, because few plants have inspired such mythic fear. The mandrake root is often twisted into humanoid shapes, with thick limbs and a vaguely torso-like form. Some are forked, resembling legs or arms, and it's this uncanny shape that gave rise to one of the most persistent legends in botanical history, the scream. It was said that when the mandrake was pulled from the earth, it would let out a scream so powerful it could kill anyone who heard it. Entire rituals were developed to harvest it safely. Some tales say a dog must be tied to the plant and coaxed to pull it free, while the gatherers stood far away, plugging their ears, hoping the sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. In other versions, the plant had to be dug up at twilight, with circles drawn in the soil, and incantations murmured to appease whatever spirit lay below. Of course, these are stories, but stories are powerful, especially when they echo something real. The truth is, mandrake does contain potent chemicals, hallucinogens, narcotics, and compounds that act on the nervous system. Scopolamine and atropine. The same alkaloids found in Brugmansia are present here too, and they are not gentle. In the hands of ancient herbalists and healers, mandrake was a plant of power. A little might sedate a patient before surgery. A little more might render a person unconscious, and too much, well, that was never recommended. It could induce delirium, madness, even death. In medieval times, mandrake root was treated with reverence and suspicion. It was believed to glow in the dark, to cry, to move on its own when no one was watching. People carried dried roots as talismans, believing they brought luck, fertility, or protection. Some were carved into shapes and sold in markets as magical companions, but owning one was said to be dangerous unless it had been harvested properly. That superstition alone tells you something profound about the human mind. We fear what we don't understand, but we also crave it. We want to hold a piece of mystery in our pockets, even if it comes with a curse. In the Renaissance, physicians debated the use of mandrake in medicine. It had the power to numb, to sedate, to ease pain in an era long before anesthetics. But its unpredictability made it feared. Dosage was imprecise, reactions were intense, and always there was that lingering sense that one was not merely using a plant, but invoking it. Even today, mandrake retains its mythic aura. It grows quietly in the Mediterranean, its leaves low to the ground, its flowers a pale purple, bell-shaped and soft. The root buried in the soil does not scream, but it remains potent, not just in chemistry, but in meaning. Literature and films still reference it. Fantasy stories invoke its deadly cry. And deep down, even the rational part of the brain can't help but wonder, what if there is something down there, something waiting, something that remembers? But here, in this quiet hour, as you lie wrapped in your blankets and thoughts, the mandrake is not a threat. It is a symbol of the way myth and science entwine like vines, of how plants are not just life forms but stories that grow from the ground up. The mandrake reminds us that the earth keeps secrets, that beneath every root might be a legend, and that sometimes we pull up more than we expect. So, rest easy now. Let the darkness cradle you like soil around an ancient root. The mandrake will not scream tonight. It's only listening and dreaming, just like you. There are some dangers in nature that make themselves known with thorns, or warning colors, or terrible smells. But others are quieter, more discreet, wearing the mask of usefulness and even healing while hiding their true threat in the tiniest of doses. The castor bean plant Ricinus communis is one such paradox. It grows tall and tropical with wide palmate leaves that fan out like a star, and its seed pods are ornamental, spiky, almost festive in appearance. For many gardeners and landscapers, it's a striking addition to sunny plots of land. But inside those pods lie castor beans, smooth and speckled the size of large ticks, brown with flecks of white or black, and inside each of those seeds is one of the deadliest substances known to humanity, ricin. It doesn't take much. A few micrograms less than the weight of a grain of salt is enough to kill an adult. And yet, paradoxically, the castor bean is also the source of castor oil, a remedy used for centuries, a substance rubbed into sore joints used to ease digestion, to induce labor even found in cosmetic products. The oil is safe when extracted properly because ricin, being water-soluble, doesn't survive the pressing process when done correctly. But the raw bean itself remains dangerous, so toxic that it has been used not only in science labs, but in acts of espionage and assassination. In 1978, a Bulgarian dissident named Georgy Markov was murdered in London with a tiny pellet containing ricin delivered through the hollow tip of an umbrella, an event that reads like fiction but was all too real. Ricin works by halting protein synthesis inside cells. Without proteins, cells die. Without enough functioning cells, organs fail. It begins with nausea, vomiting, internal bleeding, and within days, depending on the dose and the route of exposure, it can lead to death. There is no antidote. Only time, hydration, and supportive care offer any chance of survival. And yet, despite this, castor beans are not rare. The plant is cultivated worldwide, both for its oil and for ornamentation. In some places, children play near it. In others, farmers harvest it without knowing the risk. The danger lies not in touching the bean, but in chewing it, breaking the hard outer shell and releasing the deadly protein within. It is a seed that punishes curiosity. But nature, as always, is complex. Ricin is just one compound among many. Researchers continue to study it not only as a toxin, but as a potential tool in targeted medicine. In small engineered forms, it may one day be used to destroy cancer cells, to deliver drugs deep into the body, to turn poison into precision. This is the double-edged elegance of nature, that something so deadly can also be promising, that within each castor bean lies not only a threat, but a challenge to understand it better. Historically, castor oil was used in rituals and traditions swallowed reluctantly by generations who didn't know about ricin, but believed in the power of bitter medicine. It was a remedy that crossed cultures and oceans, passed from mother to child, with wrinkled noses and wary glances. And even today, its scent lingers in old apothecaries and home remedies, reminding us that the line between harm and healing has always been razor thin. Tonight, as your thoughts wander, it may be a strange comfort to know that danger can be small, silent, even beautiful. The castor bean plant doesn't scream. It doesn't sting. It only waits, growing tall under the sun, offering its gifts with one hand and its warning with the other. It is up to us to listen, to learn to handle it with care. Let that be a gentle reminder as you drift further into stillness, that the world is layered with meaning, that knowledge is a kind of safety, and that even the quietest seed can carry a storm within it. There are plants whose names echo softly through history, carried not just in science or folklore, but in philosophy, in literature, in the final moments of men who changed the way we think. Hemlock is one of those plants, not loud, not showy, not particularly rare, just a tall, lacy weed with small white flowers clustered in delicate umbels rising from roadside fields and riverbanks across Europe and North America. To most, it looks like any other wild plant, innocent, almost forgettable. But within its stems and roots lies a neurotoxin so potent it once brought death to one of the most iconic thinkers in human history. Conium maculatum, better known simply as hemlock, contains conine, a compound that acts directly on the nervous system, paralyzing the muscles gradually and predictably until even the lungs forget how to breathe. It doesn't strike like a hammer. It arrives with a whisper, numbness in the limbs, weakness in the knees. A slow, quiet detachment from the body's ability to move, and then stillness. And yet there was a time when drinking hemlock wasn't seen as a horror, but as a sentence carried out with dignity. In ancient Athens, the state used it as an official method of execution, a calm and controlled poison for those found guilty of serious crimes. There were no nooses, no blades, no fire, just a cup. And perhaps the most famous to drink from that cup was Socrates, the philosopher who questioned everything who taught by asking who irritated the powerful with his ideas and refused to escape his punishment even when offered the chance. He chose to stay, to drink, to show his students what it meant to accept death not as an end but as a final lesson. The image of Socrates in his final moments is quiet and deeply human. He speaks calmly. He walks until his legs no longer obey. He lies down as the numbness spreads upward. He feels the chill rise in his body, just as the poison was known to travel from feet to knees to chest to heart. And all the while he talks. He comforts those around him. He asks them not to fear. Hemlock in that moment became more than a poison. It became a symbol of philosophy, meeting mortality. But behind the poetry, the science remains. Coniine is an alkaloid acting on nicotinic receptors in the body. It blocks the transmission of signals from nerves to muscles. The mind stays alert, fully aware, while the body slowly slips away from function. It is a peculiar kind of death one that comes gently yet with certainty. There is no burning, no convulsing, no rage, just a closing, a turning down of systems. And yet in the wild, hemlock has been mistaken for edible plants like parsley or wild carrot with tragic consequences. The resemblance is close. The scent, however, is not. Hemlock carries a mousy, unpleasant odor when crushed, a final warning for those who know to listen. It teaches that appearances are not to be trusted, that familiarity is not the same as safety, and still it grows, along rivers, in ditches, among the weeds we pass without thought. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't need to. Its legacy is already etched into the story of human thought. In literature, it appears again and again as death, as fate, as justice. In gardens, it is rarely cultivated, and yet it finds its way into forgotten corners where silence gathers. Tonight, as you rest, let the story of hemlock settle, not as a tale of fear, but of awareness, of endings that come not with force, but with choice, of the strange peace found in understanding what we do not control. The plant did not choose to kill Socrates. It simply offered what it always has, and he in turn accepted it not as a punishment, but as part of the great dialogue. He began long before the cup reached his lips. So let the quiet of the night embrace you like that last breath, gentle, slow, thoughtful. Let hemlock remind you that death, like nature, has many faces, and some of them wear flowers. Some plants wound when touched, others when eaten, but the manchineel tree harms in ways that feel almost personal. It does not wait for contact. It lashes out in the rain. It poisons not just the skin, but the air. And it does all this not with ferocity, but with stillness, rooted and calm on the sandy shores of the Caribbean, Central America, and parts of Florida. Its bark is pale, its leaves a glossy green, its fruits small, round, and deceptively inviting look, like tiny green apples, earning it the nickname beach apple. But in Spanish, it carries a more haunting title, La manzanilla de la muerte, the little apple of death. Every part of the manchineel is toxic. The sap, milky and thick, contains 4-bole esters compounds that cause intense blistering on contact with the skin. If a raindrop filters through the canopy and touches the bark, then falls upon your arm, it can cause painful burns. People who've sought shelter under the tree during storms have emerged blistered, their skin angry and raw, marked not by lightning or wind, but by the tree's slow revenge. Even the smoke from burning its wood carries its venom. Inhaling it can cause respiratory distress, coughing, even temporary blindness. The fruit, fragrant and sweet in appearance, can cause searing pain in the throat, swelling, and gastrointestinal agony if consumed. There are stories, some old, some recent, of people who've taken a single bite and needed medical attention within minutes. And yet there is no antidote, only care and time. The manchineel does not kill quickly. It leaves the body suffering, reminding the victim with every breath, every heartbeat of the mistake they made. But perhaps the most unsettling thing is how peaceful it looks. It grows in coastal breezes, surrounded by waves and sunlight. Tourists unknowingly lean against its trunk. Children might be tempted to taste its fruit. The danger is not in how it looks, but in how it reacts to the world around it. When it rains, the sap drips. When it's burned, the smoke attacks. It is a tree that responds with quiet violence to the elements themselves. In some regions, red warning signs or painted bands are placed around the trunks, a silent plea for people to stay away. In others, the trees are simply left standing, their danger part of the local memory. Some people tell stories passed from one generation to the next, stories not of monsters, but of trees alive and patient, waiting for those who do not know their name. Strangely, the manchineel has uses. Indigenous peoples learned long ago how to work around its poisons. Its wood, dried carefully and treated with respect, has been used in carving. Its bark and leaves, processed through complex, traditional methods, were sometimes used in medicine, though always with immense caution. It is a reminder that even the most dangerous organisms can be part of a system, a cycle, a balance. The manchineel grows near water, where erosion threatens shorelines. Its roots help hold the coast together. Its thick foliage offers shade to crabs, to birds, to smaller plants. Even in its hostility, it serves a role. Tonight, as the world slows down around you, let your mind settle for a moment on this strange, defensive tree. A plant that punishes with touch, with taste, with air. A plant that reacts to rain as if each drop were an intruder. Let it remind you that beauty and peace are not the same, that even the most tranquil landscapes can contain living things shaped by war with the world around them, and that sometimes survival means becoming untouchable. As you drift further into rest, remember the manchineel not with fear, but with quiet respect. You will likely never meet it. But now if you do, you will recognize it. You will stay dry. You will stay away. And that may be enough to keep you safe. There are plants that blur the edge of reality, and then there is datura, a plant that does not just blur, it erases. Sometimes called moonflower devil's trumpet or jimsonweed datura bloom, blooms beneath the stars with trumpet-shaped flowers that glow pale and ghostly in the night. It is beautiful in a way that feels slightly unreal, the way dreams are beautiful, or distant memories that never quite happened. Its scent is strong, hypnotic, and most fragrant in the darkness. But within every part of this plant lies a chemistry that does not seduce so much as it steals. Datura contains a cocktail of powerful tropane alkaloids, scopolamine, hyoscyamine, atropine compounds that affect the nervous system with unsettling precision. In small amounts, they cause confusion, dry mouth, and blurred vision. In larger amounts, they rob the mind of its grasp on reality. What makes datura unique and deeply dangerous is not that it causes hallucinations, but that those hallucinations are indistinguishable from reality. People who have ingested it don't see patterns or colors or fractals. They see people who aren't there. They believe conversations are happening. They hold objects that don't exist. They might walk through their own homes or entire cities thinking they are in one place while truly being somewhere else entirely. And when they wake, they often remember nothing. The mind fills in the gaps with invented memories or fragments of truth. This is why datura is sometimes called the memory thief. It doesn't just create illusions, it replaces entire hours, sometimes days, with unreality. There are stories from all over the world of people who wandered in traffic, undressed in public, or harmed themselves or others under the plant's spell, not out of madness, but because they truly believed in the moment that what they saw was real. In some cultures, datura has been used in ritual and shamanic practice, handled only by those with deep knowledge and care. In India, it was once associated with Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation. In parts of the Americas, it has been used by medicine men and spiritual leaders in rites of passage or to induce visions. But in every case, it is approached with fear, with caution, with reverence. Datura does not offer enlightenment. It offers dissolution. It unravels the threads of thought. It removes the boundaries between dream and day. Its traditional use was not for pleasure, but for crossing a threshold dangerous, powerful, and not always reversible. Even modern science regards Datura with suspicion. There is no safe recreational dose. The amount needed to produce strong effects is so close to the amount that can cause death or permanent damage that there is no margin for error. The heart races. The body overheats. The mind forgets how to tell the difference between life and illusion. And yet Datura continues to grow. Along roadsides, in abandoned fields, in gardens where no one knows its name. It is beautiful, fragrant, and easy to ignore until someone gets too close. Tonight, as you lie still with your thoughts drifting between reality and imagination, consider the gift of memory. The way your mind knows where you are, what time it is, who you are. These are not things to take for granted. Datura reminds us that consciousness is delicate, that reality is precious, that forgetting can be far more terrifying than remembering. So, rest now, knowing that the night is yours, your dreams intact, your memories safe. Let the strange perfume of distant flowers stay outside the window. Let the moonlight pass quietly across your face. And know that the world is full of plants that do not shout or chase, but wait blooming in silence, stealing nothing unless invited. Among all the plants that have shaped human history, few have left a mark as deep, as complex, and as bittersweet as the opium poppy. Papaver somniferum, its Latin name, means the poppy of sleep, and it lives up to that title with a quiet power that has both soothed pain and shattered lives. The flower itself is delicate, with soft petals in shades of white lavender, or blood red fluttering in the wind like fragile silk. But inside its green seed pods lies a milky sap, thick and pale, that contains one of the most potent gifts nature has ever offered and one of its most dangerous temptations. This sap, once dried and processed, becomes opium, a substance that has been used for thousands of years to dull pain, calm nerves, quiet, coughing, and silence the screaming of wounded bodies. From opium came morphine, then heroin, then countless synthetic derivatives that continue to shape modern medicine and addiction alike. The poppy has been a healer, a destroyer, a comfort, a curse. It has inspired poetry and war revolution and ruin. Ancient Sumerians called it the joy plant. Egyptian physicians used it to ease suffering. In Chinese history, it led to addiction so widespread it hollowed out dynasties and drew empires into conflict. The opium wars of the 19th century were not just battles over trade, they were battles over dependence, over control of a flower that could rule the body and the economy. What makes the opium poppy so haunting is that its danger feels gentle. It doesn't burn, it doesn't sting, it doesn't hallucinate. It embraces, it softens pain, it wraps the mind in cotton and says, "It's okay. You don't have to feel this right now." And sometimes that is exactly what a person needs. After surgery, in the agony of childbirth, in the slow, cruel hours of terminal illness. The opiates derived from this plant have given millions of people relief, peace, even dignity in dying. But that same comfort can become a trap. The brain once offered that escape remembers. It longs, it demands, and soon what began as mercy becomes dependence. The line between relief and addiction blurs, and the flower that once seemed like salvation begins to take everything else away. It is not evil. The poppy has no intent. It simply offers its chemistry, and the rest is left to us. Scientists have studied it endlessly, unraveling its alkaloids, refining them, reshaping them into pills and patches, syrups and sprays. They've tried to keep its benefits while leaving behind the risk. But the truth is, they are forever entwined. Even now we face epidemics of addiction, lives lost not in alleys, but in quiet bedrooms, not to street drugs alone, but to prescribed medications that began in the same sap that oozes from a poppy pod under the morning sun. And yet it still grows. In the fields of Afghanistan, in illegal farms hidden in jungles, in carefully regulated gardens for pharmaceutical harvest, even in poetry, even in dreams. The poppy appears again and again as a symbol of both rest and loss. In many cultures, it is used to remember the dead, to mark graves, to honor fallen soldiers, because sleep and death in the realm of this flower are never too far apart. Tonight, as you lie still breathing gently, let the story of the opium poppy pass through your thoughts like a mist. Not to frighten, not to judge, but to remind you how delicate the balance of comfort and danger can be. That what eases pain can also numb purpose. That healing and forgetting sometimes wear the same scent. But in this moment, you are safe. Awake or asleep, you are grounded. You are not chasing a feeling. You are simply listening. And that perhaps is the most powerful thing of all. Let the poppy rest where it is beautiful and quiet, while you do the same. There is something particularly chilling about a poison that doesn't come with numbness or hallucination or forgetfulness, but with awareness, total, vivid, paralyzing awareness. The strychnine tree, known scientifically as Strychnos nux vomica, offers precisely that. A tree native to India and Southeast Asia, its branches grow tall and unassuming, bearing small orange-like fruits with seeds inside that shimmer like coins, hard and pale. Within those seeds lies a compound so potent, so specific in its cruelty, that it has long been feared and sometimes even revered, the alkaloid strychnine. This is not a subtle poison. It does not sedate. It does not drift in like a fog. It invades the body like a sudden storm, locking the muscles into fierce, involuntary contractions, beginning with the face often forming what appears to be a grin. But it is not joy. It is the risus sardonicus, a twisted mask of forced laughter, the smile of a body trapped in its own horror. As the toxin spreads, the back arches, the limbs contort. The breathing becomes difficult as even the diaphragm joins the rebellion. The victim remains fully conscious throughout, eyes open, mind clear, pain sharp. That clarity is perhaps the cruelest part of strychnine poisoning. It does not steal the senses, it sharpens them. The poison works by blocking glycine receptors in the spinal cord and brainstem, removing the natural inhibition that keeps our muscles from firing all at once. Without that balance, every sound, every movement, every light becomes a trigger. A whisper can cause a full-body spasm. A breeze can feel like a blowtorch. And death, when it comes, is usually from exhaustion or asphyxiation because the body simply cannot stop contracting long enough to breathe. And yet this tree exists not as a monster, but as part of an ecosystem. The seeds are bitter, and most animals avoid them. But some birds have adapted to eat the fruit without harm. Indigenous peoples learned long ago how to recognize the plant, how to respect it, and in some cases how to use it. In minute doses, strychnine has been used as a stimulant. It appears in tiny quantities in some traditional medicines and even found its way into 19th century tonics and performance enhancers taken by athletes and soldiers who sought alertness and strength. But the line between a stimulant and a toxin is razor thin. And for most of history, strychnine has been feared for what it does best: kill. It has appeared in detective novels and courtrooms, in whispered rumors and real investigations. Tasteless in small doses, soluble in water, and fast-acting, it has been the poison of choice in some of the most infamous murder cases of the last 2 centuries. But perhaps even more unsettling than its use in crime is its presence in nature. That such a violent response could come from a tree rooted, still quietly spreading its leaves in sunlight, reminds us again that nature does not require intention to be dangerous. It simply is. The strychnine tree does not seek to harm. It grows, it reproduces, it defends its seeds the way any species would, with a mechanism evolved over time to ensure that what it creates will not be devoured, and humans ever curious, ever drawn to the edge of risk, have tried again and again to use what was never meant for us. Tonight, as your body rests and your breath moves gently in and out, let the strychnine tree stand far from your thoughts, not as a fear, but as a symbol of precision, of consequence, of how even the most subtle changes in chemistry can mean the difference between life and death, between silence and screams. Let your muscles remain soft. Let your sleep be unbroken. Let your smile, if it comes, be real, not pulled by toxin, but born from peace. For the world is full of things that tighten, twist, and trap. But this night you are safe, and the tree far away waits only in stories. And now it is resting too. Some flowers look like they were born from silence. Aconite is one of them. With its tall stalks and deep violet-blue petals shaped like the hoods of medieval monks, it rises like a quiet figure in the garden, solemn and elegant. Known by many names, wolf's bane, monk's hood, devil's helmet, it is as beautiful as it is dangerous. And it has worn both roles for centuries. Aconite contains potent alkaloids, most notably aconitine, a neurotoxin so fast and effective that in high enough doses it can kill within minutes. What makes aconite so chilling is the way its poison works. It begins subtly, a tingling sensation on the lips and tongue, followed by a creeping numbness. Then come the heart palpitations, the dizziness, the cold sweat, and then the failure. The heart begins to misfire. The rhythm that has beaten quietly and faithfully for years starts to falter, irregular and frantic, then slow and weak, and finally still. Through it all, the mind remains aware. There is no drifting into dreams, just the terrible realization that something is shutting down inside you and there is nothing to stop it. In ancient times, aconite was used on arrow tips, a tool of war and assassination. Hunters dipped their spears in its juices to bring down wolves, hence the name wolfsbane. In feudal courts and shadowy palaces, it was rumored to be slipped into goblets or folded into food to end disputes without drawing swords. Some cultures saw it as sacred, others as forbidden. Greek mythology ties it to the mouth of Cerberus, the three-headed dog of the underworld. When Hercules dragged the beast from Hades, it's said that droplets of foam from its jaws fell onto the ground and sprouted into aconite, a flower born from the breath of death. And yet it still blooms. In mountain meadows, along forest edges, in gardens where no one remembers its name. It is a perennial, hardy and graceful, and even today it finds its way into cultivated beds because of its striking shape and noble color. It does not need to scream. It does not need to warn. It waits and it works quickly. Aconitine binds to sodium channels in the heart and nerves, forcing them open and preventing them from closing. This disrupts the normal electrical rhythm of the body, leading to arrhythmias, paralysis, and ultimately cardiac arrest. There is no simple antidote, only rapid care and the hope that the dose was not too much. Even skin contact with the roots or sap can cause symptoms. Gloves are recommended for gardeners, though few take the warning seriously. And that's what makes it haunting, that something so deadly can grow so quietly, so commonly, so beautifully. But it is not evil. Aconite, like all plants in this strange gallery we are exploring together, is a survivalist. It evolved its poison not to haunt legends, but to defend itself from hungry mouths and curious hands. The stories came later. The ghosts, the curses, the whispers in the dark, those are human echoes, reflections of our awe and our fear. Tonight let aconite be a lesson in restraint, in the danger that wears elegance, in the warning carried by silence. As you close your eyes and let the weight of the day slip away, remember that not all danger announces itself. Sometimes it comes dressed in velvet and speaks in petals, but here in this quiet moment there is no threat, no toxin, just a voice gently unraveling the truths that grow all around us. And the monk's hood, still and watchful in the garden shadows, bows its head and says nothing. Some plants don't whisper, they allure. They don't shout, they beckon. Belladonna is one of them. Known as deadly nightshade, its name alone holds the poetry of contradiction, beautiful lady and silent killer in the same breath. It grows quietly along forest edges in dappled light and loose soil, wearing dark green leaves and purple bell-shaped flowers that seem to bow gently as if in greeting. But it is in the berries, shiny black and plump, like drops of ink, that the plant reveals its most dangerous promise. They look sweet, tempting a child's curiosity away from tragedy, and yet just a handful can be enough to bring death. Belladonna contains powerful tropane alkaloids, especially atropine and scopolamine. These compounds affect the parasympathetic nervous system, drying secretions, accelerating the heart, dilating the pupils, and disturbing the balance between body and mind. In ancient times, women would use drops made from belladonna to enlarge their pupils, believing it made their eyes more seductive, more mysterious. The look it created, dark, wide unblinking, was considered irresistible. Hence the name belladonna, or beautiful woman. But beauty in this case was paid for with dizziness, blurred vision, and the subtle warping of reality. In higher doses, the effects became far less charming. Confusion, hallucinations, fever tremors, and eventually paralysis. Death by belladonna poisoning is not swift, nor is it merciful. The body begins to forget how to sweat, how to swallow, how to breathe. The mind unravels, losing track of what is real, slipping into fevered illusions. Yet through history, this plant has never left our side. In potions and poisons, in medicine and myth. The ancient Greeks used it for surgical anesthesia. In medieval Europe, it was said to be one of the witches' herbs mixed into flying ointments or brews that opened the doors of perception. It was feared, of course, but also desired for its power, its promise, its potential to pull back the veil between worlds. And always it stood between opposites, beauty and horror, ecstasy and death, medicine and murder. The plant itself is elegant. It does not scream for attention. Its stems are soft and branching, its leaves oval and calm, its flowers deep and dusky like a bruise. It grows in silence, needing no guardian. Few dare to touch it. Belladonna has long been associated with women not only in name, but in ritual and folklore. Priestesses, midwives, herbalists, those who knew how to dose just enough to dull the pain of childbirth, or perhaps more darkly to end an unwanted pregnancy. In some cases, the knowledge passed down through generations was lost or suppressed, and with it, the understanding of how to approach the plant with care, respect, and caution. Today, derivatives of belladonna are still used in controlled medicine. Atropine, for instance, is used to dilate pupils in eye exams or to treat bradycardia, a dangerously slow heartbeat. But outside the pharmacy, the plant remains untamed, wild, watching, waiting. It does not seduce because it needs to. It simply exists, danger wrapped in beauty, stillness wrapped in meaning. And perhaps that's why it lingers in the cultural imagination, in Gothic novels, in whispered rumors, in the quiet fear of something too lovely to be safe. Tonight, as your breath deepens and your thoughts float softly between the edges of waking and dreaming, let belladonna rest where it belongs, in stories in fields far away, in books read by candlelight. Let your own mind stay grounded, your heart steady, your senses clear. Beauty does not have to come with a price. Not here, not now. And the beautiful lady, with her dark berries and midnight perfume, can wait just a little longer before knocking on your door. There is a kind of music in the body, and at its center the heart keeps time, beating softly, steadily, a rhythm written in flesh. And then there are plants like digitalis that can change that rhythm with nothing more than a petal, a leaf, a whisper of chemical command. Digitalis purpurea, more commonly known as foxglove, stands tall in quiet woodland edges and garden beds rising in towers of bell-shaped flowers, pink and purple and white, each one tilted downward as if listening to the ground. There's an elegance to it, a vertical grace, like a cluster of little church bells hung from a green steeple. But beneath that soft beauty lies a power that can stop a heart or save it. Within foxglove live a group of compounds called cardiac glycosides, particularly digoxin and digitoxin. These substances affect how the heart contracts, making each beat stronger, but slower, more deliberate. In careful measured doses, they have been used to treat heart failure, atrial fibrillation, and other conditions where the heart falters. But the gap between medicine and poison here is dangerously thin. Too little does nothing. Too much can cause nausea, confusion, vision changes, and eventually the very arrhythmias it was meant to cure. And beyond that silence, a still heart. A rhythm stopped. Foxglove earned its reputation centuries ago when a physician named William Withering used it to treat dropsy, a term once used for swelling due to congestive heart failure. He learned of it not from books, but from a folk remedy passed along by a woman herbalist in the English countryside. What he saw astonished him. Patients who had been swollen, gasping for breath, slowly improving after a tea brewed from this plant. He spent years experimenting, observing, recording, and from that, one of the most important heart medications in history was born. And yet, for all its medical merit, Digitalis still holds its secrets tightly. The dosage must be exact, the preparation must be precise, the patient must be watched. In wild form, the plant is far more volatile. It has caused accidental poisonings in both humans and animals who mistook it for something harmless. The symptoms can take hours to appear first, a fluttering in the chest, then dizziness, blurred vision. Perhaps the sense that the world is slightly out of sync. And then the real trouble begins. The heartbeat loses its rhythm fast, then slow, strong, then faint, like a song that no longer remembers its melody. But what's most fascinating is how foxglove doesn't destroy it. Manipulates. It turns the heart into an instrument and takes the conductor's baton for itself. And it does this not with violence, but with precision. There's something deeply poetic about that. A flower that doesn't burn or blind or scream. A flower that listens to the body's music and changes the key. Today, foxglove still blooms in gardens across Europe and North America. Most people admire it without knowing its story. Children are drawn to its strange shape, its softness, its mystery. Gardeners plant it for color, for height, for the way it catches light in the evening. And all the while the plant waits, harmless to the eye, dangerous to the unknowing hand. But like many things in nature, its beauty is not meant to deceive. It is meant to protect itself. It did not ask to be medicine. It did not ask to be poison. It simply grew. Tonight, as your heart beats quietly in your chest, consider the way foxglove touches that rhythm without ever laying a finger on you. How nature, in its quietest corners, has always understood the body better than we think. Let the knowledge settle like dusk. Let your breath stay steady. Let your pulse remain your own. The flower has played its note, and now it's your turn to rest. Sometimes danger doesn't come from exotic jungles or faraway forests. Sometimes it waits in your kitchen, in the quiet dark of a pantry drawer inside something so ordinary, so familiar you would never think twice. The potato, humble and hardy, has fed entire civilizations. It grows underground, hidden from the sun, storing energy in its pale, starchy flesh. Fried, baked, mashed, or boiled, it is a staple of comfort food across the world. But even comfort can carry shadows. When a potato is left too long in a warm or light-filled space, it begins to change. Tiny green spots bloom beneath the skin. Pale shoots stretch upward, curling into strange, ghostly shapes. These sprouts are not just signs of age, they are warning signals. Because within them, and just beneath that green-tinged skin, a toxin begins to accumulate. It is called solanine. A naturally occurring glycoalkaloid solanine is produced by the potato plant as a defense against insects and predators. In the leaves and stems of the plant, it's always present. But in the tuber, the part we eat, it only appears when the potato is stressed, exposed to too much light heat or damage. Solanine is bitter to the taste, but bitterness alone is not always enough to deter a hungry mouth. And once consumed, it begins its quiet work. The symptoms start mildly: nausea, stomach cramps, a bitter taste lingering in the mouth. but they can progress into vomiting, diarrhea, dizziness, hallucinations, and in severe cases, even paralysis or death. The dose required for fatal poisoning is high, but not impossible, especially for children. And what makes it even more dangerous is that most people don't know. They peel away the sprouts. They cut off the green parts. They hope it's enough. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. History holds records of outbreaks, entire families falling ill after a meal made from spoiled potatoes, unaware of what they had invited into their bodies. And even today, with all our knowledge, it still happens. Because solanine doesn't smell, it doesn't change the texture, it doesn't leave a trace the eye can clearly see. It waits in the places we trust. And yet the potato itself is not the villain. It is a generous crop, easy to grow, rich in nutrition, and adaptable across climates and cultures. The danger lies not in the plant, but in the conditions we give it. It reminds us that even the most dependable things in life must be treated with awareness. That time, light, and neglect can transform sustenance into threat. The potato doesn't punish. It simply protects itself, as all plants do. It was never meant to be left in a drawer for weeks, exposed and forgotten. It wants to return to the soil, to grow again, to reach upward. That is what the sprouts are, attempts at life, not malice. But they come at a cost. Tonight, as your thoughts begin to drift into stillness, let this story gently echo a truth you already know deep down, that danger is not always wrapped in mystery. Sometimes it wears the face of something you've held in your hand 100 times. Sometimes it waits quietly, growing slowly, curling upward into the light. And it is in these moments when we pause, when we notice, when we understand that knowledge becomes protection. Let that be your comfort now, that you are aware, that you are listening, that you see the sprouts not just with your eyes, but with your understanding. And with that, the potato returns to being what it was meant to be, a friend, not a threat, and your night undisturbed. Some trees grow with a kind of silence that feels older than the land they stand on. The yew tree is one of them. Tall, dark evergreen, it rises not in crowded forests or sunlit groves, but beside churches, among tombstones, on the edges of old paths where the earth remembers more than it says. Taxus baccata. The common European yew has stood watch over the dead for centuries. Its limbs arch like cloaks. Its needles are soft but unwelcoming. Its presence is calm, unblinking. In Celtic and Norse traditions, it was a tree of eternal life, and also of death, a paradox rooted in the same soil. People buried their dead beneath it, not just for tradition, but because the yew was believed to guide souls to the next world. It stood at the doorway between realms, but behind the reverence lies a science that demands equal respect. Every part of the yew tree, its leaves, bark, and especially its seeds, is toxic. The poison is called taxine, a complex alkaloid that interferes with the electrical signals of the heart. It slows the rhythm, then it scrambles it, and finally it stops it. Often there are no early symptoms, sometimes nausea, dizziness, a sense of unease. But soon the heart begins to stutter, the muscles grow weak, the breath becomes labored, and if the dose is high enough, there is nothing that can be done. Death can arrive quickly or slowly, but it often arrives quietly. What makes the yew especially deceptive is the softness of its appearance. Its bright red berries, technically arils, look edible, almost like candy. And in a strange twist of biology, the red flesh surrounding the seed is indeed harmless, sweet even. But inside that seed is one of the most potent natural cardiac poisons known to humankind. Many animals avoid it instinctively. Cattle and horses have died from browsing on yew hedges. Dogs that chew on fallen branches may not survive the hour. And yet humans have cultivated yews for thousands of years, for hedges, for graveyards, for the dark beauty they lend to solemn places. And in modern times for healing, because in the 1960s, scientists discovered that a compound found in the bark of the Pacific yew Taxus brevifolia had potent anti-cancer properties. It became the basis for paclitaxel, a chemotherapy drug used around the world to treat breast, lung, and ovarian cancers. From a tree known for killing came a compound that saves, but even that came with a cost. In the early years, harvesting the bark meant killing the tree, and yews grow slowly. It took many lives to save a few. Eventually, chemists found ways to synthesize the compound, and the trees were spared. But the contradiction remained: a killer turned healer, a guardian of the dead offering a second chance to the living. The yew reminds us that the line between death and life, between fear and reverence, is often drawn by understanding. It does not lash out. It does not beg for distance. It simply stands patient and still, with needles soft as shadows and roots deep in both the ground and our collective memory. Tonight, as the world around you fades into stillness, let the yew tree stand at the edge of your imagination, not to frighten, but to remind you that endings can be dignified, that not all death is violent. Some of it is woven into the fabric of old places, old stories, old trees. And when the wind moves through the yew branches, it does not scream. It murmurs, it honors, it remembers, and so do you. In the dense, humid stretches of southern India and coastal Southeast Asia, there grows a tree that most people walk past without a second glance. Its leaves are glossy, its flowers delicate and white, with a pale pink heart blooming gently beneath the tropical sun. It looks ordinary, peaceful even. But the Cerbera odolum is no ordinary tree. It has another name, one whispered more quietly, the suicide tree. What makes this tree so chilling is not just the strength of its poison, but its silence. The seeds of Cerbera contain a powerful cardiac toxin known as cerberin, a compound that interferes with the electrical signals that regulate the human heartbeat. Like digitalis or yew, it targets the heart, but with a particular kind of precision. Cerberin binds to the sodium-potassium pump in cardiac cells, gradually disturbing the balance, until the heart forgets how to beat. It slows, it skips, it stops. The victim feels nauseous, dizzy. Their pulse becomes erratic, their breathing shallow. In many cases, the death is ruled as natural heart failure. Unless the seed is found or the person confesses, the toxin leaves little behind. And that is part of what makes Cerbera so feared. In rural parts of India, it has been used in suicides for generations. It grows, readily requires no special preparation, and is difficult to detect in autopsy unless specifically tested for. In some tragic cases, it has also been used in murders slipped into food or drink, its taste masked by spice or bitterness, mistaken for common herbs. And yet this tree is not monstrous. It has no voice, no will, no cruelty. It simply grows as it always has, evolving its defenses to protect its seeds from being eaten by birds or animals. Its toxicity was not meant for humans, but we, as we so often do, found a way to make it part of our stories. In ancient times, Cerbera was planted near cremation grounds and riversides. It became tied to grief, to endings, to choices made in silence. And while modern science now knows how it works, how to test for its presence, how to counter it in time, the tree still stands tall in the places where old traditions and pain still linger. It asks for nothing. It offers no warning. It simply waits in the background of village life, its seeds hidden in the green fruit, like quiet keys to the final door. There is a deep sadness in its legacy, not because the tree is evil, but because of what we have asked it to carry. Despair, escape, secrecy. Its role in human life has not been one of healing or ceremony, but of resignation. And yet, even here, there is something to learn. Cerbera reminds us of the weight of stillness, that even in the most beautiful environment, suffering can bloom unseen, that sometimes the deadliest things are those that don't seem deadly at all. Tonight, as your thoughts grow softer and your breath more rhythmic, let this story sit gently beside you, not as fear, but as awareness. Let it remind you to see, to notice, to ask, that every tree has its own story, even the quiet ones, especially the quiet ones. And somewhere in the darkness beneath its smooth leaves, the suicide tree keeps its secrets wrapped in green, waiting only for someone who has stopped listening to the rest of the world. But you tonight are listening, and that may be enough to keep you grounded, awake, and alive in the ways that truly matter. There are times when nature plays games not with thunder or fire, but with sweetness. When something golden and warm, something meant to nourish and comfort, becomes the gateway to confusion, dizziness, and dreams that don't belong to sleep. This is the world of mad honey. Found in small pockets of the world along the steep slopes of the Black Sea in Turkey, in the wild mountain ranges of Nepal, mad honey looks no different than the honey that drips from kitchen jars. Amber, thick, glowing in sunlight. It is made by bees just like any other honey. But the secret lies in the flowers they feed on. In these regions, bees collect nectar from rhododendrons, particularly certain species that contain a group of toxins known as gray and NO toxins. These compounds are not neutral. When consumed in the right amount, they cause a strange, shimmering state in the human body. A lightness in the limbs, a warm flush, a slow heartbeat, a spinning in the head, and then if too much is taken, a fall, nausea, sweating, fainting, hallucinations, a drop in blood pressure so sudden it feels like the floor has disappeared, and through it all, the honey remains sweet. People have known about mad honey for thousands of years. Ancient texts from Greek historians tell of entire armies brought to their knees by it. In 401 BCE, the retreating troops of Xenophon passed through the Black Sea coast and encountered hives filled with this strange honey. They ate, they laughed, then they collapsed, disoriented, helpless. It was not fatal, but it was enough to stop an army in its tracks. Later, local warriors used it with purpose, leaving it behind in hives as bait for invading forces. The honey did the rest, and in the villages where it is still harvested today, it is not feared but respected. Mad honey is collected in small batches, kept in dark glass jars, and used in tiny spoonfuls, often for traditional medicine. It is said to ease hypertension, boost libido, help with digestion. But it is never overused, because the line between healing and harm, between euphoria and collapse, is measured in drops. The taste is slightly bitter, tinged with something floral and strange. Not everyone can tell. Not everyone believes the stories. But those who have tried it remember. Some speak of beautiful hallucinations, of light dripping from the sky, of laughter that echoed like music. Others remember only the nausea, the heaviness, the moment they couldn't feel their legs. And the bees. They continue their work unaware. They do not know that the flowers they visit hold a secret. They do not know that their creation carries with it the weight of myth. They are simply responding to nature's design. They go where the nectar leads, and in that nectar the rhododendron hides its quiet weapon. It does not want to be eaten. It has found a way to defend itself, not through thorns or bark, but through chemistry. The bees adapted over time are immune, but we are not. And yet we continue to reach for sweetness, to chase flavor, to test the edges of what we think we understand. Mad honey is a mirror, one that reflects our hunger, our curiosity, our willingness to trust the golden things. Tonight, let the image of that honey shimmer gently in your mind, not to frighten, but to remind that even sweetness has its limits, that even gifts from nature must be approached with care. And that sometimes what makes us dizzy isn't the danger itself, but how beautiful it looks as it arrives. Rest now with that thought held softly. The bees are asleep in their hives, the flowers are closed for the night, and the world for a few hours is safe again. Not all poisons need to be touched, not all threats need to be swallowed. Some move quietly through the air, riding invisible currents, drifting into lungs, eyes, and thoughts without ever announcing themselves. These are the poisons that don't leave claw marks or bruises. They leave you gasping. They arrive on the breeze. We think of pollen as something harmless, a soft yellow dusting on cars and windowsills, the signal of spring. For many, it's simply an annoyance, sneezing, itchy eyes, a tickle in the throat. But in rare corners of the world, pollen and wind-borne plant toxins can be something far more serious. There are trees, flowers, and vines that defend themselves not with thorns or bitter leaves, but with particles too small to see, yet potent enough to overwhelm. One of the most infamous is the male cycad, a plant that predates the dinosaurs. It releases cones filled with airborne toxins, neurotoxic pollen, that can affect animals and humans alike. In enclosed spaces, the microscopic grains can cause headaches, nausea, dizziness, even neural damage with prolonged exposure. In Australia, certain cycads have been linked to mysterious illnesses in indigenous populations who lived near groves of the plants. But it isn't just ancient species. Even modern gardens can carry silent risks. The white, milky sap of euphorbia plants can become aerosolized when cut or burned. Once in the air, it can irritate the eyes, the throat, the lungs. Gardeners who prune without gloves or without wind awareness sometimes find themselves coughing, blinking, dizzy, unsure what exactly has unsettled them. And then there is hogweed tall regal with bright umbrella-like blooms. When disturbed, it releases phototoxic sap that, if carried by mist or rain, can land on the skin unnoticed. But once activated by sunlight, it causes burns, blisters, and scarring that can last for months. The air, once seen as safe, becomes the carrier, the accomplice. But perhaps the most poetic and unsettling example lies in the deserts of the American Southwest. There in bloom seasons, certain toxic plants release clouds of alkaloid-rich pollen that in large concentrations have been known to affect the behavior of insects and birds. Their movement slows, they wobble mid-flight, they land in the wrong place and do not rise again. Nature in these cases uses the wind like a whisper. A message, stay away. Do not come closer. And yet the wind doesn't choose where it flows. It carries what it finds. Sometimes the danger travels far beyond its origin. There are places where the scent of blooming flowers is so thick it becomes suffocating. Allergic reactions turn to asthma. The breath tightens. The lungs rebel. It is not the flower's fault. It is not the air's fault. But together they create something neither meant to cause, but now must be endured. And yet the most haunting thing is how invisible it all is. You cannot see the particles. You cannot hear the toxin. You only feel it slowly, strangely, suddenly. One moment you are standing in a garden. The next your eyes water, your throat closes. Your body tells you something is wrong, even as everything around you looks peaceful. That dissonance is where the fear lives. Because we trust the air. We depend on it. We breathe without thinking. And in doing so, we invite the world in. Tonight, as your own breath rises and falls in the safety of your room, let this story settle not as fear, but as awareness. That even the air carries memory. That nature's messages are not always spoken in roots and leaves, but in vapor and wind. And that sometimes the softest things, pollen mist, invisible particles, carry the oldest warnings. But for now, the windows are closed, the night is quiet, and the air around you is still. Let it hold you gently. Let it carry only calm. Let the plants outside sleep. Let the wind move elsewhere. Some plants do not kill. They do not paralyze, blister, or burn. Instead, they change the shape of thought. They reach into the hidden corridors of the brain and rearrange the furniture. And when the light returns, the room is never quite the same. Throughout history, across continents and cultures, there have been plants whispered about in sacred groves, burned in hidden ceremonies, brewed in darkness, and sipped in silence. Not to heal the body, not to poison it, but to send the mind somewhere else entirely. These are the hallucinogens of the natural world, ancient tools, spiritual messengers, tricksters, and teachers, depending on how they are used and who is listening. Among them is the slender vine Banisteriopsis caapi growing deep in the Amazon. Alone it does nothing, but when brewed with Psychotria viridis, it becomes ayahuasca, a bitter tea that opens the senses to visions, voices, and sometimes to the very architecture of the soul. Indigenous shamans have used it for generations, not for recreation, but for healing, for reckoning, for truth. The drink often brings nausea, followed by an unspooling of the mind, a journey inward and beyond. Some see their ancestors, some confront their fears, some feel the jungle breathing with them. It is not always gentle, but it is rarely forgotten. And then there are the psilocybin mushrooms, little brown and gold caps growing quietly in fields after the rain. They have been called flesh of the gods, and they too have a history woven with reverence. The Mazatec people of Mexico once used them in sacred rituals, their use guided by prayers and intention. Under their influence, sound becomes color. Time bends, the self dissolves into something larger. In recent years, science has begun to study what these mushrooms can do, not just to distort perception, but to heal trauma, ease depression, soften the edges of a rigid mind. Then there is peyote, the small cactus with no spines, just tiny buttons that grow slowly over decades in the dry deserts of North America. It contains mescaline, a compound that opens the mind's inner doors with a gentleness that belies its power. Used ceremonially by Native American tribes, peyote journeys are rarely casual. They are deliberate, guided, often painful emotionally, often transformative. From Siberian shamans using Amanita muscaria, the red and white spotted mushroom of fairy tales, to African tribes consuming iboga root for spiritual initiation, humanity's relationship with hallucinogenic plants has always straddled awe and fear. These plants do not simply amuse. They do not decorate. They reveal. They challenge. They expose the bones of belief. What all of these plants share is not just chemistry, but context. They require preparation, setting, and intention. Without these, the experience can spiral. With them, the experience becomes ritual, something closer to communion. These are not substances that make you forget. They make you remember sometimes too much, sometimes what you didn't know you were carrying. And yet they persist, in forests and deserts, in gardens and laboratories, in the minds of seekers who wonder what else there is beyond the mirror of waking life. Their legality may change, their names may be buried beneath stigma, but the plants themselves do not care. They grow, they wait, they offer, and the choice to take them has always come with responsibility. Tonight, as your thoughts begin to loosen and your breathing slows, think not of danger, but of depth, of how the mind is not a fixed shape, but something fluid, responsive, alive. These plants did not come to destroy. They came to remind us that even within the quiet chamber of our own awareness, there are doors still unopened. Let them remain closed for now. There is no journey to take tonight, only stillness. Only safety. The visions can wait, the roots are deep, and the stars are patient. Through deserts and jungles, gardens and kitchens, temples and graveyards, we have wandered together quietly, thoughtfully tracing the soft footsteps of some of the most dangerous lives on earth. Not lives with eyes or voices, not beasts or monsters, but plants. Silent, still, patient lives. Plants that do not chase, do not strike, do not flee, but instead wait. And within that waiting, within their leaves, roots, seeds, and sap, they have crafted something astonishing. The perfect chemistry of death. There is a reason plants had to evolve this way. They cannot run, they cannot hide, they cannot cry out. So instead, they learned how to defend with molecules. A leaf that causes the tongue to swell. A root that steals breath. A flower that invites and then erases. Some of them, like aconite and yew, perfected the swift kill, interfering with the heart's delicate rhythm until everything simply stops. Others, like datura and belladonna, didn't aim for the body, but for the mind, confusing thought, bending reality, dissolving identity. Still others chose stealth, the castor bean hiding ricin behind a shell, the manchineel burning the skin with nothing but a drop of rain. Even something as gentle as honey became a trap when gray anotoxins turned nectar into a hallucination. The artistry is not in the violence, it is in the precision. Each plant over millions of years, shaped by hunger, by weather, by predators and parasites, found a way to say, touch me, and you'll remember. Eat me, and you may not return. Their poisons are not evil. Their chemistry is not cruel. They are the logic of life under pressure, defense disguised as beauty, warning wrapped in petals, and in our own strange way we listened, sometimes too late, sometimes not at all, and sometimes with awe, because even as they kill, these plants teach. They have given us medicine, insight, understanding. The same foxglove that stops a heart can save it. The same poppy that lulls to sleep can heal unbearable pain. The same mushroom that fractures reality may one day mend it. They are assassins, yes, but they are also archives, carriers of memory written not in ink, but in scent and color and toxin. And perhaps what's most humbling is that they do it all without us. They do not need to be seen, or understood, or feared. They will grow regardless. Tonight, as your breath slows and the hush of night deepens, let this journey settle around you like a forest mist. Let it remind you that danger does not always roar. Sometimes it roots itself gently in soil, lifts its face toward the sun, and waits for those who forget that beauty and power often share the same stem. You have listened, you have wandered through their world, and now you carry their secrets not with fear, but with reverence. The assassins return to the garden. The night closes its petals, and you, quiet traveler, may rest. So now we've come to the end of our long, quiet walk beneath the branches of the forgotten and the feared. 20 stories, 20 plants, each one with its own secret, its own silence, its own way of reminding us that life on this planet is not always safe and not always kind, but it is always intricate, always layered, always worth listening to. You didn't need to travel to distant lands. You didn't need a microscope or a map. All you needed was time, a little stillness, a little curiosity, and a willingness to wander with an open heart. And tonight, you did. You listened. You learned. You rested inside the strange and shadowed corners of the green world. And even though your feet didn't move, your imagination did. These plants, these assassins, these healers, these ghosts, they are still out there blooming in silence, in forests, in backyards, in books, and now in you. Maybe tomorrow when you see a tree or a flower, you'll pause a little longer, look a little deeper. And maybe just maybe you'll remember that beneath every petal, every root, every seed, there may be a story, a danger, a gift. But for now, let the plants return to sleep. Let the earth turn. Let the wind carry your breath gently through the dark. You are safe here, and the garden is quiet. Good night.